All right, let's. We've been listening into John Boehner's press conference here, but now we've got an opportunity to get a little bit more of the lay of the land up there. We are joined now by Congressman Mo Brooks, who has just a couple of minutes to talk to us. Congressman, chaotic day up there. What have you gathered from some of the behind the scenes meetings that you had as to who may be next in line?
Well, there's a smorgasbord from the more liberal wing of the Republican Party. Kevin McCarthy out of California, who is second in command. He's the House Majority Leader. Also from the more liberal wing would be Cathy McMorris Rodgers out of the state of Washington. She's from the liberal 25% of the GOP conference, as is Kevin McCarthy. You've got perhaps Jeb Hensarling, who is from the more conservative half of the GOP conference. He's from Texas. Tom Price, I'd also put him in the more conservative half. He's from Georgia. Potentially Paul Ryan, who tends to be more moderate. And I'm having to evaluate their voting records. Some of them I know by heart. Some of them I know not as well as I wish. But Paul strikes me more from the moderate third of the GOP conference. Perhaps Kevin Brady out of Texas. There are a lot of names that are being floated right now. Marsha Blackburn out of Tennessee. I don't know who we're going to coalesce on. And the problem is that you've got 40-something conservatives that want us to better reflect our voters' wishes with respect to these challenging issues that we face. And we can block anybody that wants to be speaker. Similarly, people from the more liberal wing of the political spectrum, they can block anyone they want to block. It takes 124 votes, which is a majority of the GOP conference, to be nominated to be speaker. But once you get out of the GOP conference into the floor of the House of Representatives, you've got to have a majority vote of those people voting. So if everybody votes, 435 congressmen, you've got to have 218 votes, which means you can only afford to lose about 27, 28, 29 Republican members. And that in turn means that 30 or 40 Republican members can block most anybody.
Now, you and your colleague, Congressman Gary Palmer, you guys are both in the Freedom Caucus together, and it sounds like you guys will be playing as a caucus a very significant role in who becomes the next speaker. It sounds like to me from the folks I've talked to, Kevin McCarthy's got to be the odds-on favorite because he's got the apparatus in place. He knows the caucus very well, or the conference very well. Do you see a scenario in which the Freedom Caucus could support McCarthy for speaker in return for, say, putting a guy like Jim Jordan as majority leader? Is that the kind of deal that could potentially take place?
That or something very similar to it. If we were to have Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House, and again, he's from the liberal 25% of the GOP conference, according to Heritage Action scorecard. I'd have to look at a bunch of other scorecards to see whether he's consistently in the liberal third or liberal 25% of our conference.
Sure.
But if we're going to have him, I think we ought to also have on the leadership team someone who similarly reflects conservative value, someone who's more financially responsible, and that would be from the 25 or 33% conservative wing of the GOP conference. I'd also like to see some rules changes where the House leadership cannot punish in a retaliatory way people who are in good faith voting the interests of their district, keeping in mind that in this last election, 2014, every single Republican who's a conservative who ran for re-election won 100%. And I think that indicates that they are, in fact, reflecting the values of the people who sent them to Washington, D.C., and I don't like the liberal wing of our conference punishing them by removing them from important committees or otherwise denigrating them or treating them unfairly on a variety of different levels. And I'd like to see a rules change where each of our members has more freedom to do what their conscience dictates without fear of retribution.
How do you think that this could affect Alabama and Alabama's delegation? I know that Martha Roby is very close to Kevin McCarthy. I know that a guy like Steve Scalise, who's currently the whip, he and Bradley Byrne have gotten to know each other pretty well by virtue of them sharing the coastal districts that they both represent. He may play a role in this some. How do you see this playing out with regard to the Alabama delegation?
way too early to tell.
Yeah.
Our own delegation, we have different philosophies of government. And if you look at Heritage Action, American Taxpayers Union, American Conservative Union, Numbers USA, which looks at our votes on immigration issues, Club for Growth, which looks at economic and a variety of other issues. But in any event, you look at these different organizations that evaluate our voting record, and there's a pretty significant amount of disagreement in our delegation on what is in the best interest of our country. Gary Palmer and I, for example, we're from the more conservative wing of the Republican Party. I like to call it the financially responsible wing of the Republican Party.
Right.
But nonetheless, I don't think any of our people from Alabama are as liberal as some of our Republicans from Washington State or California,
Sure.
New England, New York, Pennsylvania.
Well, we got about a minute left here for Up Against the Hard Break, and thank you for taking the time to call us real quick. I know you're traveling now. How does this affect Planned Parenthood funding?
I don't think it affects Planned Parenthood funding at all. In fact, I believe that this is independent and unrelated to Planned Parenthood, in my opinion.
So there was
John
no
Boehner
deal
did not-
that took place where it's like we'll concede if Boehner steps down, we'll concede
no
to.
deal
Okay,
like that.
okay,
None whatsoever.
gotcha.
No, he just wore out. He didn't want to run this time, but when Eric Cantor lost in the Republican primary last time, that left a hole in leadership, and we couldn't be running a set of elections raising money without a majority leader or a speaker.
Gotcha. Well, Congressman, thank you again for taking the time to talk to us. We'll be keeping our ear to ground on this and look forward to seeing how it plays out. Hopefully we can get some more conservatives up into leadership.
Let's pray.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks, Mo.